Kodash, 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 Adonai, Elohim, Sabaoth, meaning holy, 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 Lord of hosts, a tetragrammaton of hosts, Yah-He, Vah-He, masculine, feminine, for the Father who art in heaven, for the supernova Mother who art in the earth, for the Ben, the Son, mankind, to die for our sins, and back to Yah-He, Vah-He. Well, back to the He. But today we're going to go into a book that I just started reading. It's correlating with the Zohar and the Kabbalah and certain biblical texts. It's called The Book of Secret Wisdom, a prophetic record of human destiny and evolution. This book is deep. I've been gravitating it just from the first couple pages of reading it. And it's broken down into chapters called stanzas. And there's 12 of them. And each one is titled different. The first one is the genesis of divine love, the knowledge of the heart, the sowing of love, the gift of mind, the persecution of love, the final battle, the fiery baptism, the love of the heart, the era of wisdom and beauty. You know, that would be Anna Chokmah, and beauty would be Tiferet. If you know how the Godhead works in the Kabbalah, divine humanity, the fire of love, the birth of gods. This book gets deep, y'all. All right, we're going to jump right into it. We're going to go into the third stanza. It's called The Sowing of Love. Sowing of Love, first stanza. It's only like a page and a half long. So we're going to jump right into this and we're going to break it down and elaborate on it. All right, the stanza number 3, The Sowing of Love, out of the Book of Secret Wisdom. All right. It starts off at 20. And I'm going to try to do a chapter on each one of these little books because they're not that long. So I can make multiple videos out of this. And I can go into other books as I'm reading this and correlate. I'm at work right now, so I'm doing this quick, short little video right now. All right, stanza number 3, The Sowing of Love. Now, tell me if any of this stuff corresponds to the stuff that's already been being brought out and stuff that you might be already reading beyond the Bible. So 20 reads, The light was triumphant. The light knew how strongly people felt the need for him. The human heart was in need of fires of love that was already established as the undeniable truth for everyone. The gods knew their work. And above all, they knew the periods. So there's different periods and cycles where this specific energy comes in, whether it's good energy or bad energy, a time to prosper and a time for decline. So the gods knew their work, and above all, they knew the period. Just like we're in a transition period right now, which we know as the Great Tribulation. Some people call it the Great Reset. It's when everything resets and everything changes and evolves, and the first will be the last and the last will be the first. Those who are the head will become the tail, and those who are the tail will become the head, because it's a shift in energy and planetary alignments that's happening right now to trigger these prophetic events in the apocalypse. The apocalypse is the great revealing. So when everything hidden comes to the surface. So they knew the periods. Being beyond time and space, they were fully aware of the great significance of the designated periods by which the world was ruled. The bright light had broken. My phone was ringing, y'all. The bright light had broken through. He had pierced the layers of darkness piled up by human ignorance. That's why the Most High said his people are destroyed from the lack of knowledge. They don't want to go beyond what's right in front of them and what they can see and touch. They don't go into the spiritual understanding, the exoteric and the esoteric understanding of how everything works, because everything is governed by your spirit. Everything comes from a thought and an idea, which leads to a manifestation of an action, and what side you are contributing more to. But if you're asleep and you're deaf, dumb, and blind, you're not fully aware and conscious and focusing on what you're doing. When you're being in a strong force pulled by ignorance and negative influence, which we call in the Zohar the evil inclination. He said, the bright light had broken through. He had pierced the layers of darkness piled up by human ignorance. So it's all in your mind, the Godhead, which is Kether, Chokmah, which is wisdom, Benah, which is understanding, Kether, Chokmah, Benah, Gedula, Jebra, Tiferet, which means beauty, Netzach, Ha, Yesod, Malkuth, which is the kingdom, which is the microprosophis, us on the ground, the bridegroom. He said, penetrating the dense veil of matter. Matter is physical objects, physical, materialized objects, which is matter. This is matter. We live in matter. He glimpsed in the gloom. The light was given birth in the soul. The light, the luminous lights. That's why the Most High is called vast countenance, the great substance, the substance. If you notice, mankind has the substance. In order to impregnate a woman, they inject them with fluids. And by the light from above, it comes within the womb, just like man was created in the womb of the earth, and it manifests like a seed, just like any other flower, tree, or living thing that's upon the earth. Same thing, that substance, that light illuminates, because everybody has a number, time of birth under a specific constellation or planetary alignment. And that substance is placed in there, but it's illuminated by light from on high, which gives it a soul. That substance just creates and forms in the womb. It's like a cake batter in the oven, and it's on the rise. But, it has to have that soul, that driving force. He said, penetrating the dense veil of matter, he glimpsed in the gloom. The light was given birth in the soul. He was palpably felt by man. 21. Wonderful changes started happening in the world. Once they realized the whole life-giving might of the flame. Flame is symbolic to spirit, fire. Spirit, fiery spirit. It's like it says in Revelation, he had eyes as a flame of fire, the fire within him. He said people began serving the fire. They were burning in their hearts, but the tongue of fire were still erratic and did not reach very high. So they didn't know, they understood the concept of gravitating to the spirit and letting the spirit be the driving force, but they didn't understand the concept, how it works. So this is how evolution works. And this book goes into all that stuff through times and different periods. He said, but the tongues of fire were still erratic and did not reach very high. Man had given life to the fiery seed, and now he began to glimpse a faint and still immature shoot. They call these shoots when this energy comes from on high in different cycles and periods. It calls the wheel of the shoot. And not knowing how to make it grow. With his still limited knowledge, he reached out and touched the flame, knowing from his earthly experience how necessary it was to water shoots for more vigorous growth. Same thing with plants, same thing with us. But through the substance and the rays of light, the air and soul, vast countenance, the limitless light, which will come in through your third eye, which is Kether, the portal within your head and your Godhead. Let us create them in our image. He said he generously drenched the germinating seed in the water. If you go in the book of Genesis to talk about the germination seed, only the water extinguishing the fire with the hiss. In the gathering darkness, the light grew dim upon contact with the cooling matter. Once again, a forbidden time was at hand when rampant extinguishing forces could come into play. This is when the evil inclination could come into play, because it's always a grace period, a time for prospering, or when the Most High might turn his face, or to come check in and make sure everything's going. But these forces is always creeping and lurking to come into play. Yet the servants of darkness were unaware of a central fact, that their period had expired. What's going on now? This is the great reset, the great tribulation, apocalypse, the great revealing. So some of these people, just like it talks about in the book of Obadiah, once Edom sets his nest upon the stars, then shall I bring thee down. He said, all these things must come to pass to the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled. In the book of Matthew, he said, how will you know the signs of thy second coming? You will hear of rumors of wars, nations rising against nations, famines, earthquakes, pestilence. Earthquakes in diverse places mean weather in places it doesn't normally happen. These are the signs of the end of the age. The Bible is written metaphorically and in allegories, in figurative language, in parables. So you have to be able to translate it and correlate it. But that's the elect's job. That's what the true chosen seeds will be able to do this. And their information is all going to correlate with each other through whatever book they coming out of, whether it be the Bible, the Quran, whatever. But we are all within the same category of the Godhead and his elect. His elect are scattered abroad to the four corners of the earth. 12,000 out of each of the 12 tribes equaling 144,000. It's a small number because many are called and few are chosen, because it's those that want to gravitate to this light. And this book actually talks about that process in which we're seeing now. He said, the servants of the darkness were unaware of the central fact that their period had expired, and they were helpless before the divine power of the seed, the chosen seed, which is us. He said, even though the flame was not practically devoid of its bright tongues of illumination, it was able to revive again. The seed held within itself the ability to send forth new shoots out of the depths to replace the fading ones. The light was inextinguishable. 22. The stellar period, celestial period, had defined a new realm. So this is on high, in the spiritual realm, the angelic realm, the celestial realm that's watching over the earth, the watchers. The stellar period had defined a new realm. At this point, it would be impossible to return to the past, since all bridges would be burnt, and they would be burnt by none other than man himself. Look at the planet. Look at how that all these bridges have been burnt. Everything has been created artificially, fake, a duplicate. It's not in its original organic form. Everything is a facade to cover up or to simplify something. Even with the medicine, they only cover your problem for the moment, but they do not cure it. Same with the pharmaceutical industry. It's all one and the same. They basically dilute the planet, decline in evolution, because people can't tap into these special high frequencies. So that Satan deceiveth the whole world to bring everybody down to his level, kill, steal, and destroy, and take as many as he can. He said the most important thing was to discern where the light was and where the darkness was. So you got to know the difference between the two, the spirit of discernment, and what the past and the future meant for him. Through wise discernment of the essence of all things, he was able to build the saving bridge. So the saving bridge would be the bridge of salvation that would span the abyss and lead him to the kingdom. The kingdom in the Kabbalah would be Malchut. Malchut is the kingdom. What is Malchut? Microprosophis. Or the queen. The queen, because the true children of light, the Israelite, the Hebrew Israelite, the chosen seed, the original bloodline with the E1B1 DNA are entitled to the kingdom. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. The kingdom is theirs. The meek and the humble shall inherit the earth. Well, who are these meek and who are these humble? Those that are not defiled by lies. They would try to deceive his very own elect, but he will cut that time short. This all correlates. He said, lead him to the kingdom of light. But all too often, people were stubbornly closing their eyes. This is blatant ignorance, turning a blind eye. Did a video on that too. Unwilling to glimpse the bright path, which was right beneath their feet, right in front of their face. But they choose to follow other people and blindly burnt the bridges that would lead them to the shore of salvation. It's like you swimming in the ocean, but it's a current. It's a current pulling you down. You're trying to swim against the current so you can make it to dry land, which is shore, which will be your salvation, because you're out there in the element that is pulling you, as another force pulling you, so you can't get to stable ground. He said, insisted on their own way, these blind ones, the deaf, dumb, and the blind, were depriving themselves from forever of the kingdom of eternal fire. Eternal, the inward parts, the eternal Yah that's in you, fires of spirits. So whereas though you can get help from these spiritual entities that help you and guide you, what you would know is the heavenly host or the angelic realm. They have good ones and they have bad ones, but you have to be able to discern the difference between the two. That's why a lot of us are taught to not even look into that, you know. But in another part of this book, it tells you how we started following all the traditions of man and the different. But we're going to get into that in each chapter that we go through in this book. But this is just the third stanza of the 12. He said, on the way, these blind ones were depriving themselves forever of the kingdom of eternal fire, referring to remain instead in the total gloom of ignorance, blatant ignorance. And that's what you see a lot going on today. That's why all these people are going to be destroyed and wiped out, because that's their light. That means they don't have the veil of light that these angelic beings can see them. They have the light of gloom. Their light is dim. So therefore, they are not shining the way that they're supposed to, in order so when these forces come down to this realm, guess what? They have a job to do, and it's the process of elimination. How do you know if you mark if you have this veil of light, which in the Bible it calls it a seal over their foreheads and their right hand, just as well as the mark of the beast would be. Those that worship the creature more than the creator. Thus began to unfold the stratification of the total gloom of ignorance. Thus began to unfold the stratification of the humanity, which was to make the last step beyond the borders of darkness or the light. So this is judgment or salvation. You got to pick a side here. Like he said in Revelation, being that they were nor hot nor cold, he's going to spit them out. They were unbalanced. That was their final choice for the period, as designated by the stars, the constellation. That's why Pluto's return. Pluto's definition is death and destruction and rebirth. So meaning judgment and salvation. But it's under the esoteric meaning, the planetary, the cosmos, the celestial. Because once these planets come in effect, the same thing throughout history. History repeats itself, so you wait for the path. Just like King Solomon said, there's nothing new under the sun. He said that was their final choice for the period, for the time, as designated by the stars, had so determined. 23. Love once again came to life in the world and diffused the almighty rays, which were even able to pierce through the most incredible dense masses and petrified matter. And little by little, people began to open their eyes. This is what you would call a great awakening. They had, during the apocalypse, a great revealing, a great awakening. They start to open their eyes from their slumber and their deep sleep. That's why in the book of Baruch, he said, they shall remember themselves in the land of their captivities and wake up and remember the ways of their forefather and be placed in this land and be lords of it, meaning basically gods on earth, gods and goddesses, kings and queens. He said they had long known that even a stone was capable of loving, protecting, and guarding and bringing happiness to their owners. Gemstones, crystals, they have a soul. Life when they're shaped in the earth. Happiness to their owners. Owners who they indeed love. Yes, the world was brimming over with love. Man beheld how a flower which he had mercilessly torn from its stem would incline its beauty little head towards him, dedicating the last moment of his life to declaration of love for him. A man, yes, a flower is able to love even a slayer that has brutally severed the threads of its marvelous innocent life. Flowers forever everything because they sincerely love men. Even men who are most in love with the money they receive for the goods they sell. The flowers very much hope that people would open their eyes and understand how it was even painful to love them. Indeed, humanity was coming nearer to this understanding, for the language of one flower was always understandable to another member of the floral kingdom. After all, it was not so long ago that human beings were flowers themselves, covering the whole planet in a carpet of beautiful gloom, but the gods did not pluck them. 24. A time to blossom and a time to bear fruit were not bounteous fruits being borne by those that had been blooming so luxuriously in accord with the periods established for them. Yes, their fruits were fresh and fragrant, but at first they could be seen only by the Creator, the one who had sown the seeds. His was the hand that had generously scattered the divine seeds on the earth, but some of them fell among thorns and were choked. Many fell in stony places. God was waiting for the harvest. He longed to see the divine fruit, for like would bear like unto him. Said, let us make them in our image so they could bear fruit and be likened unto him. Why you think they're trying to take you away from that path? As a apple to a tree would bear an apple, a pear tree a pear. Thus in everything his law would be obeyed. The law, statutes, and commandments, cause and effect, the laws of the universe. Some people call them 48 laws of power. The seed germinated and hastened to bear fruit. All the shoots were by now firmly established, showing strong stems. Only their fruits was still in question, and only the fruits ripened was it possible to judge the results. But for that the period had not yet come. In the meantime, the fruits were absorbing everything granted to it by a generous world, and the roots, whether they were sunk into the darkness or into the light, served to determine the fruit's true value. You will know them by their fruits, their behavior, their action, by what they produce. And what you dish is what you get in return. It's called a karmatic bonus in the universe, and it always comes back to repay. This is the last part of this book. Thus, the gods directed the motion of the will towards the new period. They directed the motion of the wheel inside the wheel, to the new period. And that was the season of reaping, designed to effect the final calculation of the ripened divine harvest. This is the third stanza out of the book of secret wisdom. I'm Nujaru Blue. All praise to the Most High, the Most Gracious, the Most Merciful, my strength, my Redeemer, my rock, my salvation, my Abba who art in heaven, my supernal mother who art in the earth, to the Ben that died for my sins. All praise to the Most High. Like this video, share this video, subscribe to my channel, please do, because we got 2 more years of this period, this tribulation period, to exceed and grow. So it's time that we all network and get this truth out here. Show love, you're going to get love back. Point blank, period. That's how we coming. We got to love our brothers and sisters in our heart. We got to follow these commandments as they say do. That's why every time I go on Pacific People videos, I always I make a comment, I communicate with my brethren, because I want to build a relationship with them, because it's all going to pay off in the end, because everything we do is for a reason. All praise to the Most High. Kodash, 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 Adonai, Elohim, Sabayah. Holy, 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 tetragrammaton of hosts, the vessels. He made us in his image. Start acting like it. Deuces, I'm out.